breaking news and trending talk with Mike and McCarty. Mornings on 101.7 FM and 710 KEEL.
101.7 FM, 710 KEEL. Mike and McCarty. Aaron on vacation. Jerry May in studio for Aaron. And in studio with us this morning, former Registrar of Voters, Ernie Robertson. Ernie, I look forward to you coming in every time.
Well, thank you.
Because, first of all, I love the Shreveport history and your knowledge of the history. You're a published author of Shreveport history. But today we're going to talk about a little something different.
I can't imagine what you want to talk about. You didn't tell me. What do you want to talk about?
Right. Tell me what. Tell me again what you were telling me as we were walking in this morning.
Well, I'm the father of the 65 and above mail-out program, where you can request a ballot if you're 65 and above from the registrar's office, and you get it for as long as you want to get it. As we used to say, well, you go off one of two or three ways. Number one is you don't want it, or you're not on this earth anymore.
Okay, so
that's some of the problems they're probably talking about, because I heard an allusion to we will want everybody to vote, but, you know, the real key is not that they didn't vote, is that maybe something's incorrect with the ballot. But the real problem is if the board went ahead and let them vote with an incorrect, didn't have a signature, or didn't have a witness.
They didn't pull it off the pile to count. They left it on the pile that got counted.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Dale Sibley testified yesterday, from what I understand, some of the reports that I read, that a lot of people are signing with an X instead of signing their names. And how does that work? Is that...
Well, the law, first of all, it's odd that there are a lot of people signing with an X, because unless you have an X on your actual registration blank, you probably shouldn't be signing with an X. Now, you could have debilitated to the point that you would sign with an X, but you have to have a witness either way it goes. That's number one. Got to have a witness. The real key is that's odd, because usually you don't have that many people that sign with an X.
Right.
That's not a typical problem. There's not going to be 100 people in an election out of, say, 7,000, 8,000 ballots. You're not going to have 100 people sign with an X. And so...
I mean, I hear somebody signing with an X, and I think of, Deadwood. I'm my gold claim. I'm making my mark. And that's not in 2023.
Yeah, well, you would still have people that do that only because they may have some problem that, say, with a stroke, and they're debilitated from signing their name. You would have somebody using a version of an X. But usually you've seen that before. In other words, you could compare it to a previous request.
And then another problem is ballots with no signatures.
Apparently, they ought to be thrown out.
And apparently some were not.
They ought to be thrown out. And if the board didn't throw them out, the board didn't do it right.
Is this a failure in the registrar's office?
No, this is under the Board of Election Supervisors. This is a separate body. There are 5 people on the Board of Election Supervisors in every parish. 6 in New Orleans, because they got to have 2 clerks. But there are 5 here in Caddo. There is the clerk of court, who is the chief election official of the parish. Then you have the registrar of voters, and then you have the governor's appointee, and then you have a representative of both the recognized parties, one from the Republican Party, one from the Democratic Party. There are 5 people on it. And they are the ones who are charged with the counting of absentee ballots and making sure that the law is followed as the law is written, not as you want to say, well, Aunt Bessie, was old and she didn't know she was supposed to do this or do that, and we ought to count it. Nope, that isn't the way the law goes.
Thank you.
The law is really very specific. You got to have a signature and you got to have a witness.
And a mother's maiden name.
Well, at the top, you got to have the mother's maiden name, which I hadn't heard any mention of yet, but I'm sure that is an actual part of what the law says you're supposed to have.
Okay, go through. I've never voted by mail, the mail-in ballots. Go through that process. How does that, when after you drop that ballot in the mailbox, what happens to it? Where does it go? Who is responsible for it once it reaches its destination, and then what happens to it?
Well, basically, it's supposed to go to the voter you send it to on the address label, which 99.9% of the time we don't have a problem with that because of the postal system. But once it gets to the voter, then it's up to the voter to go through and get the ballot envelope out, and it's a special envelope, and on there is a ballot flap, which is detachable, which is what the board's supposed to be looking at. And that's where you put, they've already put, the registrar's office already put a sticky tab on there giving your name and all the information they actually need, precinct and things like that. And then underneath that is where you fill out your mother's maiden name. And then you come down, they already know that you're a member of the 65 and above program or whatever your request is. But you come down from there and you need to sign your name, and you need to get a witness.
Right.
Now that's it. And then you take your ballot, you vote your ballot, and you're supposed to color in the little circle, not check it, not exit, color it in.
Is it a number 2 pencil? I mean, is it that tight?
It's not that tight.
It's not that tight. Black ink or blue ink?
No, it's the scanner itself. The key is the scanner.
Right.
And the scanner can read based on, and this, nobody's brought this up, based on the discrimination setting of the scanner. And that's either loose or tight. The tighter you get, the more precise the scanner is about reading it, because it's an eye that can be adjusted, whereas our eyes can't be adjusted. But
that's interesting. Nobody's mentioned that.
No, that's
what's
part
the
of
setting on the scanners?
Yeah, what's the setting on the scanner? And then the reason for that is, and the reason it's usually loose in a major election like this, and I hate to use that phrase, but that's the name we use for it. And the reason it is because you got to read so many ballots in such a short period of time. You're already starting really early to get this done. The board's got to consider whether this ballot's going to be read or not. But the real key is also you want to get it done, excuse me, I'm just going to say it, you want to get it done by the 10 p.m. news.
Sure.
The bottom line is you want to provide the results as quickly as possible. Okay, that's not true in every other state, by the way.
So once the voter drops, they fill out their ballot and they drop it in the mailbox.
It goes back to the registrar.
It goes
back to the registrar.
Who opens it? What happens from that point?
The registrar at that point, all they're doing, the first thing they're doing is they're receiving the ballot and they're processing that it has been sent back. They're not making any decision on anything other than they've gotten the ballot envelope back with the ballot in it.
Okay.
That's all they're doing. And then from there, on election night, you have the teams that actually open the ballots. And they go through and they have a list. There are 2 people with a list, okay? And there'll be maybe 8 teams opening these things. And what their job is, read the name off, make sure we got the right ballot for the name. They say, okay, Ernie Robertson, check. And then they move the ballot to the left. Now, at that point, the idea is to maintain the secrecy of the ballot.
I was going to say, when they open that, can they go, oh, look, Ernie Robertson voted for candidate?
No.
They can't see that?
Not yet. No. And you've got to, they're supposed to be looking at that ballot flap, is my memory at that point, to see if there's a problem, put those to the side. Now, I may be right on that. They may do it a different way now. But that's one of the first checks. And then they're going to file all the ballots basically by precinct, because that's the best way to count them, in case you have to have a recount. And imagine that. And so they're kept by precinct, and they're put over on the carts, and that's where those ballots that are ready to be counted will be removed at some point. Now, they may actually remove those during the counting team, come to think of it. But the point is, the removed ballots are going to the people running the scanners. At that point, you don't know who voted on what.
Okay.
That's been separated out, and you've got the ballot flaps should be kept by precinct, and then you got the ballots over here, and they're going to run them through by precinct, and you keep them separate by precinct.
Okay, hold with us. We've got to take a break. You can stay with us for a bit.
I can bore everybody this morning.
You're not boring anybody. This is fascinating, and it's stuff that needs to be known. Okay. Jerry May in for Aaron. Ernie Robertson in studio. Mike and McCarty, 101.7 FM, 710 KEEL.
Breaking news and trending talk with Mike and McCarty on 101.7 FM and 710 KEEL.
Jerry Mays in for the vacationing Aaron McCarty. We've got Ernie Robertson in studio with us this morning talking about the Caddo Parish, Ernie's former registrar of voters. When did you retire, Ernie? In 19?
July 2019.
Okay. So Dale Sibley took over after you, correct?
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
Jerry, you had a question you wanted to ask?
Yeah, regarding the flap over the flaps on the absentee ballots. The Nicholson team flagged 54 of those flaps at the court hearing yesterday, such as for missing voter signatures or witness signatures. But they also identified 3 people who signed as witnesses on more than one ballot. Now, the law is you can only witness one ballot.
One ballot.
So they identified 3 people who signed as witnesses on more than one ballot. Is that something that should have been or could have been caught, Ernie?
It's difficult to catch that. I mean, it depends on the reason for that, I say, is as those are coming in, you've got hundreds, even thousands of ballots sometimes coming in a day in Caddo Parish. And looking down and trying to figure out if that's the same signature, first off. But the second thing is, at the time that I was registrar, we didn't have a separate database that we kept on witnesses.
But in this age of ballot harvesting, maybe that's something that needs to be done.
Yeah,
check these witness signatures.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point. But you see, the thing is, you could. I'm not going to get into the way you could go around the law. But the point is, there is no identifying information on the witness. The law doesn't allow for the registrar to say, okay, this person is a representative of this group. You know, that may be where they're going with that. And I don't know.
Feasibly, the voter themselves could fill out the ballot, sign the ballot, then use their left hand and sign, John Smith as the witness.
I can't believe you'd say that.
Ernie, I'm not a fan of mail-in voting. I'm just not a fan.
I understand it, but here's the deal. There are people who are 65, like the guy you're talking to, who qualifies for this program, even if I wasn't 65, due to some slight sight difficulties. And so you have to come up with a way for people that can vote, because even saying drive down to your poll and vote, or God forbid, go down to the registrar's office and stand in line for early voting, both of those options require physical mobility, number one. And number two, you've got to have the wherewithal to stand there for that length of time.
So what changes could be made to prevent this from happening? Obviously, irregularities are going to happen, but when you have a one-vote margin, these irregularities could determine change the outcome of the election. What changes could be made to prevent these from happening?
Well, first of all, anybody that didn't sign their name, that ballot should not be counted. Anybody who doesn't have a witness on the ballot, that ballot should not be counted. Those are plain and simple. Now we're down to, you got a lot of people signing with an X. That's peculiar. But again, that comes under a separate part of, who is the witness? Maybe that's part of the problem. But then again, maybe the voter has gotten to that point. Where did they, is the voter had a recent stroke or something, some type of physical event? I don't know. And I think that's going to be for the legislature to look at it, but they got to tread lightly on that, because you don't want to wind up in the middle of saying somebody that's handicapped can't vote.
Right, sure.
That's what you're trying to avoid. The second thing is, I don't know of any procedure, whenever I was registrar, that we had a situation where we were going to the person signing as a witness for more than one ballot, because it could be that could be someone in a particular situation that's the way they got a witness. Because the real problem whenever you do mail-out ballots, the one thing we get is people are calling and saying, I don't have a witness. And we say, what about a neighbor? What about your pastor? What about someone that comes to help you with your health? What about this? We'd come up with a whole little list.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of went down. And that was trying to help the voter. And there are options, but again, it's up to the legislature.
Okay, I've got some more questions. We've got some messages on the Shreveport Security Systems message board.
Oh, okay.
Can you hang with us?
Sure.
Awesome. Ernie Robertson in studio. Jerry May in for Aaron, Mike, and McCarty. 101.7 FM, 710 KEEL.
Back with McCarty on 101.7 FM and 710 KEEL.
Well, Erin got back from her vacation and got sick. She's home under the weather.
Yes.
And hopefully she'll be back here in the next day or so.
Yes.
Hope she feels better. Jerry May helped me out a lot last week, and we had Ernie Robertson in studio on Friday talking about the election irregularities in the Caddo Parish Sheriff's race. We'll hear more from Ernie coming up right after the break. 101.7 FM, 710KEEL.com.
Let's get back to the show with Mike and McCarty on 101.7 FM and 710 KEEL.
All right, Ernie Robertson, we got a lot of questions. One of our Shreveport Security Systems message board says, how were multiple people allowed to early vote, mail-in vote, and then go to the polls and vote again?
They shouldn't.
Well, we know they shouldn't. How did that happen?
Well, let me go. Whenever you vote, you come in to vote in person or you vote by mail, then it's going to say on the poll list, early voter. Okay, because that ballot is checked into the computer system through the state, and it's going to print that early voter on there, or voted early. I can't remember which one. And then, so that's on the list. So if that person voted at the polls, then that means the commissioner did one of two things. Either got the wrong name for him to sign on, maybe that one didn't say that, or just ignored the fact that they were an early voter. And some people go to the polls and they may say, oh, I didn't really vote early. I was going to do that and I decided not to. Or I didn't mail my ballot back. Well, it doesn't matter. You know, that
if it says early voter, then they should not be allowed to vote.
We're supposed to be calling the registrar's office to see if that is the case. And if it was the case that you voted early, you're not supposed to be voting at the polls.
And just to point out, I believe it's just two who voted twice as far as what they found. One voted early.
That's 4 votes.
Exactly.
And in a 1-vote margin.
Sure. One voted, just to clarify, one voted early and one had an absentee ballot.
Okay.
And both showed up at the polls and were allowed to vote on Election Day.
Okay. Now, the Nicholson campaign asked for a hand recount on the 7,700 some odd mail-in ballots, but they ran them through the scanners. Tell me about these scanners. Are these the most current, up-to-date, most accurate scanners that are available on the market today?
There are some that are better, and I think we need to look at that in Louisiana. I pushed for it years ago, and it ought to be going to the top 16 parishes that basically have 100,000 or more people in the parish. And the reason for that is that if we can get better scanners, Louisiana's got a bad case. Well, Mama bought you new shoes. I need new shoes. Every parish gets the same thing. And I don't agree with that. Never have agreed with that, because the real key is where's the bulk of the vote. They're going to be handling the greatest amount of ballots coming in. They need the top level scanners. If you want to give the rest of the parishes these scanners, so be it. But the point is, in those major parishes, and I'm talking about top 16 out of 64, they need the best scanners they can possibly get because they're doing the most work.
Now, you said during the break that these scanners, the eye on the scanners is adjustable, and you can loosen the setting on it or tighten the setting on it.
Right. And I disagree with that. I'm one of those purists. We ought to do it the same way every time.
Sure. And why is it even adjustable?
Well, it's adjustable so that it reads more ballots more quickly. In other words, you usually don't have an election that has one vote. You're usually talking about in most of these major elections, and And I try to think back. I can remember in 1971, 5,000 votes statewide is what separated Edwin Edwards from J. Bennett Johnston. And that they thought at that time, that's a close election. Well, it was statewide.
Sure.
But the point of the matter is we're down to one vote here. And I agree with the hand count. I agree with the hand count. I'm one of those people that if you've got a question, let's get the paper out and let's take a look at the paper.
Because something changed after election night. Each candidate wound up with three more votes when they rescanned them. And these are the same scanners that were used election night?
Yes.
Okay. And then on the recount, they found 3 more votes for each candidate.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So it didn't change the outcome. It was still a one-vote margin. But you said these scanners are the same scanners that LSU has used?
Well, that's what they started. That's what we started with.
Okay, but that's not what we're using
That's
now.
not what we've got. Many generations past there.
Okay.
These are good scanners, but I'm one of those people, good ain't good enough when we have elections in Louisiana. We need to be spending some money. And I'm talking to the legislature. And I'm talking to the Secretary of State. Put it in the budget. Go find the best scanner you can. And let's go with that scanner. And one of the problems is they don't want to leave the scanners in the registrar's offices all the time if it's a really good scanner. Now, we had 3 dedicated scanners for Caddo, and they would do that because you don't want to have to tote them around. Well, I agree more with that. I don't know how they're doing it now, but they ought to leave these. But they don't want a big scanner. They don't want one that looks like an old copy machine.
Do you think if we had a hand recount of those almost 7,800 absentee ballots, there would still have been another different outcome?
Probably.
But again, we know that there are ballots that shouldn't have been there. Whether they're for Nicholson or for Whitehorn, there are ballots that shouldn't be in the count.
Because they were missing signatures of voters.
Missing signatures,
or witnesses.
Missing witnesses, or the same witness witnessed multiple ballots, but you can't attribute them to a particular candidate.
Right.
So can this we're talking with Ernie Robertson, former registrar of voters for Caddo Parish. Can this I don't see how this can be fixed without another, and I don't mean fixed as in the fix is in. I mean, I don't see how this can be corrected,
There is no remedy. Yeah.
Without another election. Am I wrong?
I think that's the way it's going to come out to be. And the only reason I say that is you can't attribute whatever the error was to how somebody voted. You just can't do it. And so you've got to think, well, then what's the best solution? And you don't want an election that's always questioned. So
I agree.
As I hate to say they might want to consider a revote, I think they're down to that. But that's up to the judge.
And it's so unfortunate that this happened because there's already been shaky confidence in our election, in our electoral process.
No, this is a good thing. Now you got to look at it the other way. This is a good thing. This is whenever Thomas Jefferson is very happy with democracy because we're questioning democracy. We're questioning the technical part of what's going on. That's the point. And in Louisiana, we need to question that sometimes.
And it's going through the correct legal process. It's going the right way. We went right to the court. The court's going to rule. But, there are those that are saying this is not right, that we're being robbed, that our vote doesn't count.
Half the people are going to be unhappy however this turns out. Let me say this to that group of people. The court remedy can go either way,
first off. But the second thing is then let's look at, obviously it's going to be appeal one way or the other. And It may wind up at the state Supreme Court. But the point is, democracy is one of those things you have to question. Because people vote, they have their emotions involved, but more than that, the process itself in Louisiana is it's working. This is working. This is what we want. We just want a definitive answer, and we want to make sure that what has happened is in the best interest of not only the people of Louisiana, but the election.
But you're going to have the problem, I think what Mike's alluding to, people are still going to question the process, whether an election was fair or not. If Whitehorn comes out on the losing end of this, there's a new election, and if he winds up losing, they're going to cry the election was stolen from him.
I've heard that my whole career. Whenever you get in the ring, guess what? Sometimes things happen, and that's just the way life goes. And I'm not saying that for Chief Whitehorn. I'm just saying it for everybody. This is politics. The laws are set where you can appeal. The laws are set where there can be certain remedies to it. And if you can't come up with a remedy, it's up to the judge. I've never heard of us having a revote. I don't even know if there's a law on a revote. I've never heard of it.
Really?
I don't know of one.
A Red River Parish Sheriff's election maybe 20 years ago?
Oh, yeah. You're right. Yeah, I remember that one. And they did have to revote that one, and that involved someone I knew. Yeah.
Did it change the outcome of the election?
I think it did.
Really?
I think. I mean, that's a long time ago, but I know it was a nasty election. Of course, that's true in a lot of cases in small parishes. Excuse me, I'm not saying they always have bad elections, or nasty elections, but that one was. And the only thing I have to say about that is the system is working. Exactly what's supposed to be happening is happening. You can go in there, you can file your suit, you can have the court hear it. And whatever the court decides, you knew that when you got into the ring in this deal.
Okay.
That's part of it.
Did you ever have to testify in a sort of deal like this, a contested election, a recount?
Not on this level, no. No, I usually testified to whether a candidate knew precisely where they lived.
We've had some of those, haven't we?
That was always, I'd get the subpoena deuces tecum, just like Perry Mason did, get a subpoena deuces tecum, and here comes the subpoena, and I take out the record, and I go show them the record. And that's the way we did that.
Ernie Robertson, thank you so much. You're at, you've got a little booth at a bookstore at Timeline Antiques.
That's right.
And you're there in the afternoons. And Ernie, I love talking to him about Shreveport history. He's forgotten more than I'll ever know. And if you want to learn more about Shreveport history, stop by and chat with him in the afternoons and buy a book.
Please.
Thank you, Ernie.
Thank you.
101.7 FM 710.
Now more breaking news and trending talk with Mike and McCarty on 101.7 FM and 710 KEEL.
Well, yesterday, listen, this came in early. I was in our B group, Sunday school at church. Phone goes off. And I get a text that says, I just left Quick Care.
Oh no, yeah.
And she said Erin got back from vacation, had a wonderful vacation. I didn't really talk to her that much yesterday because she was feeling so bad.
Right.
And said she's going to be out for a couple of days.
Yeah, had too good a time.
Isn't that convenient? But when you get on a ship for 2 weeks and then you get on an airplane, I still say they're floating cesspools of virus and germs.
Oh, it's the same with bars because me and my band had a show on Saturday night. It went very well. We draw the weirdest crowd in Shreveport, I think. And yeah,
have you heard your music?
Yes, it's all our fault. But yeah. So yeah, I was up all last night sick.
Oh my God!
So with some kind of stomach
God
thing.
God love you for being here this morning.
I couldn't not be here.
Right? Yeah. Thank you. Exactly.
Right. But I am getting out of here as soon as the show is over. So, bad luck for health rest this weekend.
No kidding. You guys hang in there, man. Get rest. Get lots of fluids.
My stomach's better now. I'm just tired and dehydrated. So I just need to sleep it off and drink a lot of water.
Louis R. Avalone he's going to be joining us coming up right after the news as well. And Liz Swain from the Downtown Development Authority. A lot of exciting things happening downtown. We'll talk to her coming up next. 101.7 FM, 710keel.com. 101.7 FM, 710 KEEL, Mike and McCarty. With the McCarty under the weather, hopefully she'll be back here in the next couple of days or so. We wish her the very best. Louis R. Avalone is in studio with me this morning in for Aaron. First of all, good morning. Liz Swain's on her way. She said she's running just a few seconds.
Absolutely. Good morning, Mike.
Thank you so much for coming in.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Tell me, what are you guys working on? You're with American, of course, you're the president of the Republican Party of Caddo Parish.
Yes.
Is that right, President?
That as well, yeah.
Grand Poobah, is there an election, you guys?
There is an election. There's qualifying coming up this month.
No, I mean for your job, for president.
Oh, sure. Well, yeah. I mean, it's always subject to revocation by the committee, certainly at any time. But yeah, absolutely.
And of course, you have your own business that you run as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Avalone, tell me the correct title.
Avalone Poobah. No, it's Avalone Door Company.
Door Company
is one of the companies, and so so we.
And I told you I was going to get you to go by and check my mom, not you personally, but your company, my mom's garage door. But I found out my brother-in-law fixed it.
Okay,
it was as simple as the eyes, you know.
That is one of the most common culprits when folks can't close their garage door.
The laser that shoots across to make sure that, it'll stop if something crosses was out of whack.
Yeah, if it's out of alignment.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's dust as well. So if you just, just take your finger there and rub it over the eyes. It generally makes it all better.
It makes me feel better that now we've got it working and going again. So you guys, but you're also with American Ground Radio.
Yes.
You and Stephen Parr heard right here on KEEL, 5 to 7 every night.
Every night. And we're in over 45 media markets all across the country.
That is so awesome.
It is exciting. And it's neat to interact with folks all over the country. We get lots of comments on our text line, folks calling in, and it's been a real ride since we started right here on KEEL.
Right.
The very first affiliate that we ever had, and we look to add another 10 to 15 affiliates in the first 6 months of 2024.
That is incredible. Congratulations.
Yeah, we just continue to grow.
And Stephen Parr, your co-host, of course, he was a meteorologist at KSLA.
He was. Yes, absolutely.
So he's a weather expert, but he's one of those news junkies also, I believe.
He's a little bit of everything junkie in terms of certainly with regards to global warming and climate change. Of course, he has such a in-depth knowledge of the science of global warming, and if you really want to see him riled up, is talk to him about global warming.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. What's his stance on global warming?
It's all a farce.
Oh, God.
I mean, and it's a farce because,
thank goodness.
Well, you knew where that was going.
Well, I was hoping.
But the science just doesn't support it.
Yeah, right.
So
I remember going back to Rush and listening to Rush talking about global warming.
No, and look, you got to follow the data. And there's a lot of folks that say, oh, you don't like the environment, and you want to destroy the environment for our children. The data's not there.
Right.
The earth is not warming. Yes, the earth does warm. And it cools.
It's a cyclical process, and it's a natural process.
Yes, absolutely.
So anyway, yeah, I digress. So, well, good. How about your weekend and your Thanksgiving? Everything was nice?
Everything is wonderful. We did a little Christmas decorating yesterday in the yard, and so that was very satisfying to get some holiday lights up. And does it seem like more people are decorating this year?
I hope so.
Than ever before.
I hope so, because Halloween seems to have just gotten huge. And more Halloween decorations than I've ever seen before, and less Christmas. Hey, I saw you wandering the hallways. I know, right? Come on, Liz Swain just walked in. We're in our new digs now. So nice. But
Good morning.
I'm glad to see people getting behind, more Christmas decorating as well. Liz Swain in studio. Liz Swain in the house. Good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Look at you. You look beautiful.
Fancy.
You didn't have to get all dressed up just for us.
Oh, I didn't.
Don't flatter yourself, Mike.
It's a work day. I had to, put on the real clothes.
Get real close to these.
I had to put on the real clothes today.
I know you look nice.
Thank you.
You've got some big news as well, too, don't you?
Yeah. There's been all kinds of stuff going on.
Yeah. I want to talk about Art Walk.
Okay, great.
Because that's one of mine and my wife's favorite events.
Mine too.
We did.
Love it.
Started that years ago. How long have y'all been doing that?
Oh man, I think we're on maybe our 6th or 7th year. It's because nobody else wanted to do it, and you raise your hand and then you regret raising your hand, or you go to the bathroom right at the wrong time during the meeting and you get appointed.
Yeah. I'll volunteer Liz to do that.
She'll do it. Yeah. She'll do anything.
It's such a fun event. All the different vendors, all the different artists. One of my favorite things, in addition to that, is all the buildings that you get to go see.
Absolutely.
And it's even. We got to take a break. I want to talk about that though. It's even bigger this year than.
Well,
you got a huge one.
The December holiday Art Walk is always the biggie because we just blow out everything because we should. It's December and it's Christmas and holidays.
All of the stops that are on this one.
And the artists and the cookie contest and the music and the special drinks and the special food, and we'll talk about it.
It's Liz Swain in studio. Louis R. Avalone in for Aaron, Mike, and McCarty. 101.7 FM, 710keel.com.
Stories of the day with Mike and McCarty on 101.7 FM and 710 KEEL.
Liz Swain with the Downtown Development Authority joining us in studio. Mike and McCarty with Louis R. Avalone in for Aaron. One of my favorite events, Art Walk, taking place this Wednesday night.
5 to 8 in downtown Shreveport.
5 to 8.
Yeah, it's completely free. It's family friendly. We have, I think, 12 different locations, dozens of artists, cookie competition, live music, special drinks and beverages, and food and fun. And I mean, it's just, and we'll have a shuttle. So you can jump on the shuttle. The shuttle will take you to all of these places. You can get off any place you want to. You can just ride the shuttle around all night if you want to.
Now, if somebody wanted to go, which I highly encourage you to take part in this, where do they park and where do you suggest they start? Because you can walk the entire route, right?
You can walk. It's a walk.
It's a hike.
One. It's a hike.
Big one.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you'll probably want to do a little walking and then do a little shuttling. But the great place to park is Art Space. Everybody knows Art Space, 708 Texas, right across from the First Methodist Church. Mm-hmm. 2 big lots that are open and free right there at the head of Common Street. You can park in either of those lots for free starting at 5 o'clock.
After 5, right.
Absolutely. Walk across the street to Art Space. Maybe let that be your first. Walk inside, see what's going on, kind of get your bearing, the lay of the land. Grab your map that will be available to you, or you can get it on your phone at downtownshreveport.com, and then just start going. You can go, the lofts will be on it, 620 Texas, 616 Texas, 500 Texas, and then you just bounce around from there. The Remington, Stray Cat, the Agora Borealis.
Oh, it does go all the way over there.
Oh, yeah, and then we're going down Crockett Street. I mean, there are multiple smaller locations. And some of the vendors that we have are really unique. I'm very excited about them.
Like?
Well, we've got a guy, it's Clausen's Cutlery, and he's going to have knives and things like that are made in his shop. And we've got a vintage trailer.
So you have a completely unique, one-of-a-kind item, knife.
Everything that you get at Art Walk is one of a kind because it's an artist or a creative who is creating that one thing. And even if they may have multiple paintings, each painting will be unique, and it's for you.
Now, did you say something about cookies? Or did you say cooking?
Cookies. But, yeah, there's cooking and cookies, I think. But, yeah, there's, I think, 10 different competitors, and these are serious cookie baking, like bakeries and things like that are participating at Art Space in a cookie baking competition. And I'm pretty darn sure that you're going to get to try them because somebody's got to be the judge. And I think that that's the public.
Now, one of my favorite things about Art Walk is the fact that you can get to go inside some of these buildings that you normally wouldn't be able to go inside, or you could. But
you're driving. You're in your car.
What are you doing in here?
You're in your car. You're driving by. You look at a building. You go, my gosh, that's a gorgeous old building, but you just really don't have a reason to go in it.
Exactly.
So the Lofts building, which is the old Sears Beebleman's department store built in the early 1900s, that one will be open. The Remington Hotel, you might not ever have the opportunity or the desire to go in a hotel. You might not be staying there. That is it's incredible.
Love the
beautiful.
Remington.
That lobby is gorgeous. And the Agora Borealis, which is it used to be, I think it was Ship's Radio back in the day on Lake Street. It's been created into this arts marketplace that has more than 100 different local and regional vendors.
And that's a cool building just in itself.
Oh, yeah. So very neat. So you get a chance to experience what people have done in these historic buildings in rehabbing them and bringing them back to life. And it's truly remarkable. It really is.
Now, in addition to Art Walk, there's some holiday other things going on. Tell me about what else is happening in Shreveport.
Oh, so we've got so many other things going on downtown. You know, December really is the month that we let it all go crazy. The Shreveport Regional Arts Council, which is our huge partner in downtown projects, they are doing things every weekend, either at Art Space or Caddo Common Park. One is called A Very Tuba Christmas that's coming up in a couple of weeks. We've got a silent disco dance that they're going to be doing. Just a variety of things. You can go on the Shreveport DDA Facebook page or our downtownshreveport.com calendar of events, because that calendar has so many things you don't want to miss out.
Tell me a silent disco? Is that everybody wearing earbuds?
Yeah. That's so, and it's so funny because if you're not wearing earphones, everybody looks goony. Right? So you really need to get into it. You really need to put those earphones in and be listening to that music.
Any special Barkowski Bridge activities or lighting and
They had the big one for Rockets Over the Red. You know, the Bukowski Bridge every night, though, is lit up. So you can have your own special. You can go down there, you can sit, you can play some Christmas music on your radio and some holiday tunes and just watch that bridge, and it is absolutely gorgeous.
Okay, I'm going to look like an idiot, but that's not new. Did I miss Rockets Over the Red?
You did. Rockets Over the Red is always the Saturday after Thanksgiving. And it was the big deal again down on the Bossier and Shreveport riverfronts.
Right.
And they had live music and they had singing and dancing and vendors. And then they did the giant fireworks show.
Okay, I was out of town.
Okay.
There's my excuse.
Good excuse.
I was out of town.
Good excuse. Good excuse.
You've got some, just real quick in the last minute and a half here.
Yeah.
You've got some exciting news.
I do. I
don't think it's exciting for downtown.
Well,
you've been such an advocate for downtown.
And I love downtown. Always will. Will advocate for downtown. It's a very special place, and our entire community needs to be invested in a strong and vibrant downtown, because that makes our entire community stronger.
Absolutely.
And it's a huge part of our tax base. But I am embarking on my next adventure in life, and I'm going back to my first love, which is journalism. I'm going to our new newspaper. You know, newspapers now, by and large, are digital in many places, and it's the Shreveport Bossier City Advocate. I will be downtown still, and my office is at Louisiana Tower, and I will be the new business reporter, and I couldn't be happier about having the opportunity to tell people what's going on, the things that affect business, the things that, because business affects all of us. If we have a strong business community, we have a strong community,
absolutely.
Period. If we have a weak business community, a community that's not thriving and doesn't want to be here, then all hope is lost.
And we've got some really exciting things happening in Shreveport, Bossier, in our area.
Tremendous.
We've got some really exciting things happening as far as business and economic development.
We do, and I think that that's only going to continue, and my extreme joy will be to tell you all about it once I take that job on January the 1st. And everybody's saying, well, who's going to replace you? And the quick answer is that no one knows yet.
Right.
The boards.
Well, they're going to have to go through a process.
They'll go through a process. Absolutely. They'll go through a process, and it may take a little while, but that's okay too, because we've got a staff at the DDA that, they'll keep the ship going in the right direction. So there's no fear there.
But there's no replacing you.
Yeah, she's irreplaceable.
Well, I appreciate that very much, guys. I really do. But I am sure that the boards will, do a great job in finding that person that they believe will, be the right fit.
I hate to lose you in that position. I'll be honest.
Well, it has been a wonderful 13-year ride. It really has. And we've seen so many great things happening, and I'm sure we'll see many more in the future.
Liz Swain, well, congratulations.
Thank you so much, and thanks for the time to talk about Art Walk this Wednesday, 5 to 8 downtown.
This Wednesday, and it's absolutely free.
Absolutely.
Come 5 to 8, Shreveport Art Walk Park downtown at the First Methodist Church parking lot, and just enjoy the evening. Mike and McCarty, 101.7 FM, 710keel.com.
Back with more of Mike and McCarty on 101.7 FM and 710 KEEL.
FM 710 KEEL, Mike and McCarty. Yeah, I got a text yesterday morning. Erin said, well, I'm not feeling well. She left the quick care and she's under the weather. So,
are you sure she doesn't have pneumonia? Because she be moaning coming back to work?
No,
it's pneumonia.
I know Erin, and she is she's chomping at the bit to get back, especially with all this going on. She hates, she's missing out on a lot of this stuff.
Truth be told, she probably worked over her vacation on that cruise ship.
Well, yeah, maybe. I don't know. She may have needed to unplug for a little while.
Sure.
So, but I know she's ready to get back at it. And because today is the filing deadline, the Judge Blake said today's legal. Good Lord. I'm not having a stroke, I promise you. The lawyers for both sides in the Caddo Parish Sheriff's race, John Nicholson's campaign and Henry Whitehorn's campaign, have until today to file their briefs. Nicholson is contesting the outcome of the election. And so then the judge has, I think,
well, he could come back later today, could come back tomorrow. John Nicholson filed his brief on Saturday. He had a deadline of noon on Saturday. I believe the deadline is today at noon for Henry C. Whitehorn Sr. To file his brief or argument with the court. And of course, Judge Blake at that point can take as long or as little time as he may need. But, of course, time is of the essence.
So he doesn't have to issue a ruling within 24 hours of receiving the brief, so he's got as much time as he needs.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think he's under any time constraints other than the fact that, yes, time is of the essence because whatever needs to be done with respect to this matter, if it is a new election, there are folks that need to know that as soon as possible.
Well, as we heard from Ernie Robertson, the former registrar of voters, the irregularities in Nicholson, when you read his original filing lists dozens of irregularities that cannot be repaired. You can't fix it because there's no way to attribute multiple votes to a particular candidate. And in a one-vote election,
right,
that's huge.
Yeah, you can't cure the defects. If you turn in an absentee ballot and you didn't sign it, the registrar of voters can call you up and say, hey, come on down, sign it, and it'll cure that ballot and it'll fix it. But this is not one of those situations. And
we had ballots that weren't signed that were counted according to the flaps that were, processed after the election.
And that was noted in the filing that the Nicholson campaign made on Saturday. I think what is particularly interesting, and after listening to Ernie Robertson on Friday and again the interview this morning, a lot of this is going to come down to the election board of supervisors. And if you listen to Ernie Robertson, he makes mention of the board. The board had the responsibility. The board didn't do X. The board didn't do Y. Mm-hmm. The registrar of voters, Dale Sibley, certainly has a significant role in all of this, but I think there is going to be increasing attention on the election board of supervisors. Of course, that's a 5-member board, because I believe that the chair of that board is an appointee of Governor John Bel Edwards. And the question is, why didn't the board do what the law requires? If you look at the election board of supervisors handbook, it indicates that the board is who determines whether an absentee by mail ballot is valid or not. And I don't believe, and certainly the arguments were made in court from the testimony of the registrar of voters, that was not done. Not only from the testimony of Dale Sibley, but also from the chairman of the chairwoman of the election board of supervisors, who indicated,
And according to the Nicholson campaign, there were dozens out of just a few that they reviewed, dozens of ballots that either weren't signed or ballots that were witnessed by the same person, multiple ballots witnessed by the same person, which you can't have.
And that was just a handful of ballots that were reviewed, as the filing on Saturday alleges, reviewed within 90 minutes last Monday.
So if you have that number of votes in a one-vote election, you can't fix it. You can't go back and go, well, this one wasn't signed and this voted for candidate X. You don't know. I don't know how it can be fixed without another election.
No, I think the consensus is that Judge Blank will certainly consider ordering another election, although there are other remedies that, as a judge, he could certainly order as well, that come short, perhaps, of calling for a new election.
Louis R. Avalone in for Aaron, Mike, and McCarty, 101.7 FM, 710 KEEL, and on the free KEEL app.
Back to the show with Mike and McCarty on 101.7 FM and 710 KEEL.
Not a whole lot.
101.7 FM, 710 KEEL. Mike and McCarty, Louis R. Avalone in studio for Aaron. She'll be back here hopefully in the next couple of days. Your Money Now coming up next. 101.7 FM, 710 KEEL.
Breaking news and trending talk with Mike and McCarty on 101.7 FM and 710 KEEL.
All right, there are a couple of messages on the Shreveport Security Systems message board about the sheriff's race, and then we'll move on from that next hour. But I want to follow up on one of the messages says, and Louis, maybe you have a better beat on this. Why can't you have ballots witnessed by the same person? If I'm a caretaker for several clients or family members, I should be able to sign and affirm the ballot.
Sure. Well, obviously it's to cut down on ballot harvesting, where, certainly you look across the country where one individual or group of individuals are responsible for delivering literally hundreds of ballots, and they are the witnesses for those folks, presumably. Mm-hmm. So it is to cut down on fraud, increase the integrity of that ballot. Mm-hmm. So I hope that answers the question.
One message says, so it's not a problem until there's a problem, ? There's clearly more that can be done to mitigate errors and oversight. And then a message says, anyone going to hold, and this is interesting, this goes to what you were saying a moment ago, and I quote, is anyone going to hold the voting commission accountable for this mess? Some invalid ballots got through and others don't? Sounds like a house cleaning is in order.
Well, the Board of Election Supervisors, those folks change from time to time. The question is...
But what institutes that change? Is it just attrition or is there...
Well, as far as you have
appointment?
You have a representative from the Republican Party, you have a representative from the Democrat Party. you have a representative or a governor appointee on the board.
Now, these are those 5 individuals that we saw during the recount.
And then, of course, the clerk of court has a seat on the election board of supervisors, as does the registrar of voters. Mm-hmm. So the question is, the law requires the election board of supervisors to qualify those absentee mail-in ballots. I mean, it's very plain in the handbook for the election board of supervisors. The question is, what role did the registrar of voters play in hindering or assisting them in fulfilling their statutory requirements? In other words, did the registrar of voters strip off those affidavit flaps without giving notice to the election board of supervisors, of which the registrar of voters is a member? So that's another question.
All right. It's interesting. Today's the deadline for the legal filing from the Whitehorn campaign. We'll stay on top of it. Mike and McCarty, 101.7 FM, 710 KEEL with Louis R. Avalone. .101.7 FM, 710 KEEL. Mike and McCarty, Aaron out, a little under the weather for the next couple of days. Louis R. Avalone in studio with us this morning. Louis, I'm going to start, as Aaron says, pibbing, but for guys, it's bibbing. Because she gets her panties in a bunch.
Sure. I
don't wear panties. So.
Good to know.
Mine would actually be bibbing. Boxer briefs. This Chinese respiratory illness.
Yeah.
It's affecting mostly children.
You know, as Yogi.
And mostly in northern China.
Yeah, I was going to say, as Yogi Berra said, it's deja vu all over again. But no, there's this illness apparently that's been reported since mid-October. And it's said to be particularly hazardous for children. Mm-hmm. It has overwhelmed hospitals in the northern regions of China. The WHO, the World Health Organization, they are uncertain whether the outbreak is due to an overall increase in respiratory infections or a new separate event. This is an unknown pathogen at this point. And you have Republican senators led by Senator Marco Rubio from Florida. They are calling on President Biden to issue an immediate travel ban between the United States and the People's Republic of China.
Not going to happen.
You know, because look,
Biden isn't going to do the first thing to restrict anything to, from, or about China.
Well, obviously China has a history of, let's just say, hiding information from the rest of the world, right. Being less than transparent in public health crises. And
which is what they're doing on this one as well.
Exactly. So if you look at the COVID-19 pandemic, China deprived the United States and really the whole world of crucial information about the disease and its origins. Of course, when President Trump called for a travel ban, of course, you know, he was called all sorts of, you know, he's called a xenophobe. Nancy Pelosi, you know, I guess in true fashion to do anything opposite of President Trump, she went to Chinatown in February of 20 and walked the streets, you know, obviously without a mask. There was no such
at that time.
And she was trying to say, well, we're all safe. We're all fine. As you can see, there's no problem. They were enjoying a stroll through Chinatown. And then, of course, you know, just mere weeks later, the government went into complete shutdown. But
and there are factions of the left that are already trying to position this. And does anybody think this is a coincidence as we approach another presidential election year that they're going to try to use something to affect the election again?
Well, yeah, I mean, let's learn from the past at the very least. I mean, many folks did point to this time, you know, COVID began in the winter of 2019. Of course, it was 2020 when it hit all of us here in the United States. So it's parallel. Of course, 2020 was an election year. 2019, I guess if you're comparing, the timeline, we're right in that time.
Exactly. It's not a coincidence. And it depends on where you get your research and where you get your news. It is how people are viewing this. There's an article on Healthline, should you worry about China's respiratory illness surge? And they're saying that many experts suggest this is a normal response to the lifting of China's COVID restrictions. Now, they've had lockdowns for way longer than we had here. And so there's what's called immunity debt, which social distancing, masks, and lockdowns weaken a population's resistance to other pathogens. The lockdowns, the masks, the social distancing, it doesn't work. It didn't work. And I'm here to tell you right now, you try to institute that again in 2024? Fool me once, shame on you.
Does it make a difference, though, that this unknown pathogen apparently is affecting children more so than adults? Because remember, during COVID, for children really were unaffected by and large. It was older Americans and older folks all around the planet who were particularly susceptible to the flu, to COVID, to, getting ill, having other comorbidities. But this particular respiratory illness apparently is more prevalent among children than adults, which, that could cause a great deal of concern all around the world, right? Because parents want to do the right thing for their children.
But again, going back to what you just said, we don't know what it is. Well, we don't know that the Chinese government doesn't know what it is. They're just not talking. As you said, they're not real good at disseminating information about their own crises.
And that's why they're calling, some senators in Congress are calling for an immediate travel ban between the United States and China. I mean, had that been done when President Trump, if it had remained in place, maybe COVID wouldn't have been as strong in the United States as it ultimately was.
Well, in the article in Healthline, could it spread? Could we be looking at another COVID? And this article says it appears unlikely these respiratory illnesses could develop into a novel virus that becomes a global pandemic. Again, this goes back to China's extended lockdown and mask mandates, and that's caused an immunity debt, and then the country's size are all factors. This is focused normally on northern China. So a lot of the experts are like, they're not really worried that this is going to turn into another COVID-like.
Well, in the World Health Organization has requested that China share detailed information about the mystery illness, but we all know the close alliance between the World Health Organization and China.
I don't trust any of them.
They covered for China during the entire COVID pandemic. So
I don't trust our own CDC, for crying out loud.
So next we may be hearing cries for automatic mail-in ballots for 2024.
Oh, you don't think? Come on. No.
Look, the safety of our country and our children are paramount. That comes first. We need to be looking at what's going on in China, though, so we don't repeat the mistakes of the past.
Louis R. Avalone in for Aaron McCarty, 101.7 FM, 710keel.com.
Back with McCarty on 101.7 FM and 710 KEEL.
It's a very interesting time in Louisiana politics right now. This is, it's a very exciting time, or it could be a very depressing time, depending on what side you're on. We have a new governor going to be taking office in January. We have a new legislature, a super majority, Republican majority in the legislature. So it's exciting, but Lewis, this is also make hay time. And you either get done what you say you're going to get done, because now the onus is on the Republicans. They've been wanting to do certain things and saying, these are issues that are important. Are they going to be able to pass them?
Yeah, absolutely. Daniel Ersbaumer of the Pelican Institute, he described it as the Republican trifecta, right? Insofar as you have Republicans who control the governor's mansion, Republicans that control both the Senate and the House of Representatives, not to mention that every statewide elected office in the state is also held by Republicans. And the question really is, as it is in Washington, D.C., do Republicans have the political will, the political courage? And I distinguish that with respect to political, because they have constituents on both sides of the issue. But the question is,
they have the cojones, is what you're saying.
Well, okay, yeah, there you go. Do they have the you-know-whats to do the big things in Baton Rouge?
So there's some legislation that a lot of conservatives have been constitutional carry, for example.
Constitutional carry, Representative Danny McCormick
has been pushing for years.
Has brought that bill every year. He has been in the House of Representatives in Baton Rouge, and every year, for one reason or another, it does not make it. And so I think that's going to change very, very significantly with this new governor, certainly. But, again, I think Louisiana voters have provided a mandate to lawmakers for a conservative approach to government. And that's from fiscal to social issues. And again, I think it comes back to the looming question for voters is whether there is the political will for lawmakers to make the long overdue changes needed to move Louisiana forward. Representative, now Senator-elect Alan Seaball, he says the bottom line is Louisiana needs to change everything.
And that's true.
We need a paradigm shift.
Absolutely. And a lot of Louisianians, lifelong Louisianians like myself, are tired of being at the bottom of all the good lists.
And it's almost as if Republicans, at least according to Alan Seaball, his effort will be to undo all that John Bell Edwards did over the last 8 years. And one place to start is to look at the vetoes. Here are the most recent ones, involving anti-vaccination measures, for example, that the governor vetoed, education savings accounts that the governor also vetoed. Anytime Republicans attempted to cut taxes, the governor, of course, squashed that as well. Criminal justice reform.
Personal income tax, that's a big issue facing the new legislature. And there have been several that have come through this show saying that they're for eliminating the personal income tax in the state. Is that going to happen?
I mean, it's going to come down to a matter of dollars and cents, because if you're going to pull the state income tax, that money has to be replaced in some form or fashion, maybe not to the complete extent.
But there are those that say a sales tax is more fair.
Oh, well, there are those that say that's more regressive. So, it's going to be a political battle. I think it always has. Do you raise property taxes? Et cetera. So there's lots of issues here that have to be untangled, but have to be addressed in order to move Louisiana forward.
But there's no excuses now. There's no excuses for the Republican Party in Louisiana.
No, I think the heavy lifting, the onus is on the Republican Party, because I think voters at the end of this term of this governor, of this legislature, are going to look at those Republican lawmakers and say, what else did you want us to give you? We gave you the governor. Mm-hmm. We gave you every statewide elected official. And we gave you majorities in both the House and the Senate.
Thank you.
What else do you need?
That's what I'm saying. It's now, it's time to cut or make hay. And
that's the argument that has been made. A lot of folks have been frustrated with politics because of that. They go, well, nothing changes. For example, we've elected a Republican majority in the Senate in Washington and back in 2014, nothing happened. But I think we've got a much more conservative legislature in Baton Rouge this year than in recent history.
Louis R. Avalone is in for Aaron, Mike and McCarty, 101.7 FM, 710keel.com.
Get back to the show with Mike and McCarty on 101.7 FM and 710 Keel.
Louis R. Avalone in studio for Aaron. She got back from a 2-week vacation and got sick. Not surprising. She was on a cruise ship and an airplane. But she hopefully will be back in the next couple of days. I'm very grateful for Louis coming in this morning. Louis, coming up, Nicholson filed, his attorneys filed their legal
brief argument. Saturday at noon.
That was their deadline.
Yes.
And then the Whitehorn campaign lawyers have until today.
Correct. Absolutely.
To file their briefs. And then the judge can look over them. So I want to talk about that. You've looked over the Nicholson brief that they filed, and we're going to go over that coming up after the break. Mike and McCarty, 101.7 FM, 710keel.com.
Now more breaking news and trending talk with Mike and McCarty on 101.7 FM and 710 Keel.
Okay, Saturday was the deadline for the Nicholson campaign to file their briefs for the contested election, Caddo Parish Sheriff's race. Today is the deadline for the Whitehorn campaign attorneys to file their briefs. Then the Judge Blake from Ruston, Louisiana, came over, an impartial party. He's a former Louisiana
Supreme
Court justice. Mm-hmm. And he's been called in on cases like this before to mediate. And he's got, you say, unlimited time to look over these briefs, and he could determine for a recount. Now, Nicholson has asked for a hand recount.
Right.
And that could be one of the solutions as opposed to an entirely new election.
Yeah, last hour I made mention that there are other remedies other than ordering an entirely new election. And in fact, in the filing on Saturday from the Nicholson campaign, they ask for a full and accurate recount by hand. Mm-hmm. And they want the judge to order the registrar of voters, the board of election supervisors, and the clerk of court to perform their duties pursuant to the law with respect to the ballot counting, undervotes, overvotes, or distinguishing marks on a ballot. So the judge could come back, his initial response may be, we need to do a hand recount. And you raised an excellent point off air. You said, what good is that going to do? Because how do you know who voted for who, even if you figure out that there are...
Right, because the affidavits have been removed from the ballots. The affidavits that weren't signed or were witnessed by multiple people or didn't have the required legal information or requirements on the affidavits that were put on the let's count these votes pile.
Sure, and I guess the other way of looking at that is if you do a hand recount and you come up 1,000 votes more for either Whitehorn or Nicholson, and you have a pile of discarded ballots because of, the certificates, the number of certificates rather, are being discarded, and therefore those votes would have been invalid and should not be counted in the overall total. If it's only 50, right, and okay, I know it's more than that, then it really doesn't matter who they voted for.
If one candidate picked up 600 more votes and you had 30 discrepancies, well, that's a pretty, relatively, compared to a 1-vote margin, a wider margin of victory.
And again, we're using some extremes here just as for instances in terms of the judge may want to get to look at what type of numbers are we looking at. You know, I certainly the judge is aware of the incongruencies with respect to, or irregularities with respect to the absentee ballots from the Nicholson campaign, just going through the absentee ballots for 90 minutes last Monday following the scanner recount. And, you know, of course, Ernie Robertson on earlier in his interview, he said you can control the sensitivity of those scanning machines. And so to the extent that they might have been more relaxed during the recount.
That's baffling to me that you would lack in something as important as an election. We had discrepancies. Why would you? It would seem like in any election you would want them as tight and as accurate as possible.
Certainly, with respect to the
does
recount.
it take longer? Well, then it takes longer. But then we can, you know, have more faith in the process.
And that was one of the points that Ernie Robertson, of course, for folks who don't know, Ernie Robertson is a former Caddo Parish Registrar of Voters, long time,
absolutely.
Registrar of Voters, did an excellent job. But nevertheless, his point was you want to get the results out on election night as quickly as possible.
And I understand that. But I also would rather have more confidence in knowing that those results are more accurate as opposed to trying to rush it and get it out.
Absolutely. And so, again, the judge, they have until today, the Henry C. Whitehorn campaign has until today to file their argument with the court. And we could see this judge come back and order a new election, but he may stop short of that because the Nicholson campaign is praying or is requesting a hand recount be done. And to the extent that you can't figure out who the victor is following the hand recount.
That seems to be the natural next step would be a hand recount before progressing to an entirely new election. I don't know. We'll find out what he says, hopefully, later today. Mike and McCarty with Louis R. Abalone, 101.7 FM, 710 KEEL.
Stories of the day with Mike and McCarty on 101.7 FM and 710 KEEL.
Okay. You want to feel a little better about Shreveport politics? Be glad our mayor isn't LaToya Cantrell. I'm not even going to say Destroya. She's on her way, or it might now be in Dubai. Dubai.
Yeah,
I'm sure she's traveling first class.
Of course.
She's going to attend an annual climate summit convened by the United Nations.
So let me get this straight. She's going to take a jet fueled by fossil fuels, which apparently are destroying the planet.
And she's going to fly halfway around the world
in order to complain about folks who use fossil fuels.
And then, she's going to be picked up by a limo at the airport and taken to her hotel.
But,
it's not an all-electric limo.
This is the second international trip she has made just this fall. She just got back from Kenya. Meeting, again, this is another United Nations meeting. The one in Dubai is organized by the United Nations. She just got back from another United Nations conference in Kenya on plastic pollution.
Right.
Does she work for the United Nations or for the people of New Orleans? I'm a little confused.
I'm wondering how the average person in New Orleans feels about your mayor jet-setting around the world on your dime.
Well, they tried to recall her. And
some did.
That was poorly organized. That's another discussion for another day. But her term is not up until January of 2026. So if you don't like what she's doing, you can just go pound sand. That's where we are.
Yeah.
And, of course, she's got to fly
but
first
she got
class.
reelected, Lewis. She got reelected.
I mean,
she got in trouble for flying first class. You get they get so much allocated for travel expenses. She was going above that, and then a judge finally came in and said, "No, you have this amount. You went over it to fly first class. You have to pay the difference." So it's not a secret that she's wasting taxpayer money.
Well, you highlight the point. She's been reelected, and that's why Thomas Jefferson said we have government not by the majority, but by the majority that participate.
That vote. Exactly.
So that's why it's important that we all vote, and your one vote, if it is true anywhere in this country, it's true right here in Caddo Parish.
If
your
it hasn't
vote counts.
been illustrated lately, then I don't know what to tell you. So, if you haven't even registered now, go register to vote. Get ready. Because let me tell you what, coming up next fall, it's going to get interesting.
Yeah,
Lewis,
yeah.
Thank you for coming in.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure.
Appreciate you so much. Erin, she's going to be out for the next couple of days. So, and I think we'll see you on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Be back with you.
We'll stay on top of this sheriff's race. Mike and McCarty, 101.7 FM, 710keel.com.